As you will recall, the long-range facility plan, while we usually are focusing first on a single year, then on in 3-year increments, but we usually are laying out for you 10, 12 years worth of building projects. Because when we build the recommendation that we end up presenting to you, we're building a long-term recommendation. Now, you will notice today, although we won't talk in detail about it, we have attached for your information the facility study that we completed in 2021, which became the basis for our decision to recommend to you all, which you all have approved, the replacement of some number of our buildings. Immediately, the ones that are underway right now is the new Northwest Middle School. We are about to get underway with a new Bryson Middle School. You'll recall in this plan somewhere there is a replacement on site for Hughes Middle School. There are significant recommendations regarding the career centers. Those are based on that facility review that went into the condition of our oldest facilities and the facilities that were least touched by the BEST program. And you all, some of you were here as a part of the BEST program, but most of you as board members were not part of BEST. And BEST kicked off like 2021, and in a 10-year period, the district constructed $1 billion worth of new schools, complete renovations, additions, improvements and replacement to major building components to do two things. One, to address the tremendous growth that the district was experiencing. Second, to address the extremely poor condition of a large number of our facilities. And unfortunately, the condition of our facilities had resulted from a lack of investment over time in systems replacement and in renovations, because the district was fully focused on got to build new for growth, and used up the available resources to do that. And you may recall this was an extremely innovative program, no longer permitted in the state, but we were able to catch up the facilities that needed repair, mostly through replacement or complete renovation, which well positioned us for the future. And subsequent boards have been very committed, and the administration has provided recommendations to honor that commitment, to making sure we do not find ourselves in that position again. So a significant portion of capital funds each year are spent, we refer to it as MARS. That's simply an acronym, as you will recall, for the software we use to project and track when we need to do systems replacement, whether that's HVAC, roofs, asphalt paving, sidewalk replacement, doors and hardware. It literally covers every component of our facilities, both the buildings and the grounds, to the extent pavement, exterior lighting, that sort of thing. To make sure we do not find ourselves, or some future board and some future administration does not find itself where we found ourselves in 1999. We've been able to do that over time with a very stable millage rate. Our millage has gone up 6 times since 1999 and down 2 times since 1999. In the meantime, having completed a large number of projects and diverted and invested long-term revenue into making certain we're adding life to the buildings and the equipment that we have. We'll talk a little bit more about the financing part of this when we get to Robin's portion of today. But nothing we present today would exceed the current millage rate that we have. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the process today. But the first thing we want to do is Drew is going to talk with you all about population projection, where we're seeing growth, where we're seeing, where we may be seeing some decline, what that may look like in the future. There's every reason to believe that that decline may be a short-term decline, so there may be needs out here. That might cause in the future for us to recommend a project go out, to be done later, or come in and be done sooner. And you're also going to hear when Colonel Carlin presents his part, some of the projects we want to accelerate. Anytime we can move a project up, we're going to reduce cost. Because if we move it up, we're offsetting, it's really cost avoidance. We're offsetting future inflationary increases. Now, the inflation around construction has slowed somewhat, but you'll recall construction materials inflation has far exceeded regular inflation for maybe 5+ years. It is now slowing some, but that just means it's more approximating the regular rate of inflation. And there's still a good bit of uncertainty around steel, and I'm sure Colonel Carlin will talk a little bit about that. So we know there'll still be inflation. We know that if we move stuff this direction, that helps to offset future inflation, whether it's 4%, 5%, 10%, or 15%. So you will hear those things as well. And there are a few other revisions. One of the kind of signal revisions in there would be we've examined bonds, re-examined the bonds project, and we probably need to, and we're going to recommend to you, do a pretty significant demolition there and build new in the area that was the former Greer High School. So not the shops, which were built in the 90s, but the former Greer High building. So you will hear that. That's a fairly significant change. Population, there's some fairly significant notes in there, and there'll probably be perhaps a couple of significant notes in the financing part. So I'm going to turn it over at this time to Drew and let him talk with you about population projection and go through those slides related to that.
Hey everyone, I'm going to go through the 2026 Long Range Facilities Plan. First, we're going to encompass various parts of the plan, the Greenville County population data, an update on the housing market economy, charter homeschool virtual charters within our attendance boundaries, as well as an update on GCS enrollment data trends, school choice, student enrollment projections, do a summary of the LRFP presentation, and then I'll hand it over. So first, we're going to look at county population data. The blue, here we have a graph. The blue depicts the county population. That data is from the U.S. Census Bureau. The green depicts the school district population. This goes back to 1980. You can see the county population, we have a year-over-year increase pretty much since the 80s. Most recently, we've had a 1.5 to 3% annual increase in total county residents. And then this past year, from 2023 to 2024, we did a 2.2% increase, which is nearly 13,000 new residents. We don't yet have the 2025 data point. The U.S. Census Bureau will report that at a later time. In conjunction, you can see the school district population has also had that year-over-year increase, and that did not occur in 2025, and we'll go over that a little bit later in the presentation. Here, we've broken up the county population into different age brackets. We've showed this slide in previous years, and we really focused in on the aging of the county population and focus on that 50-plus age brackets. And you can see in 2024, we've seen an increase in 65 and older, but actually saw just a slight total increase in 50 to 64, but the percentage of the population there decreased. Looking at school-aged residents, so 5 to 17, we saw another slight increase in total residents, but then a decrease in the total percentage, and that mirrored under 5 as well. One group I did, or two groups I did want to bring up was 22 to 29 and 30 to 39. We are continuing to see those grow. More specifically, the 22 to 29, you can see went from 11.2 to 11.89, nearly 5,000 new residents. That's important for us because according to the CDC, those age brackets are responsible for the most births in the state of South Carolina. So we'll continue to track that data point. Looking at the housing and economy within our attendance area, so Greenville County, this is U.S. Census Bureau data of the single-family permits issued over the last 10 years. You can see that influx after 2020, most likely represented to the influx of new residents in our attendance area, or in Greenville County. You can see we dropped off significantly in 2022, and then it levels out for several years. We had 2 years of year-over-year increase in 23, 24, and then here in 2025, most recently, we had a decrease to 4,340 single-family permits. Looking at multifamily building permits, we've talked about the variability in the past, about the increase and decrease and the sharpness in those. Typically, that's a normal thing. You have a demand for multifamily housing in an area that doesn't have it, and then once that saturates, then you see the steep decrease, and so it goes up and down. But most notably in 2024 and 2025, we've had 2 years of increase in multifamily permits in Greenville County. Here we have a map that depicts single-family subdivisions or multifamily housing that has either been approved or submitted to local governments within Greenville County Schools attendance area. This is from January 2025 to January 2026. These are all the subdivisions that we've reviewed in our department and working with all the local governments. The green points indicate single-family subdivisions of 50 homes or greater. The blue signifies single-family subdivisions 49 or less. And then the red signifies apartment complexes or apartments. And so you can see that it's scattered throughout our attendance area, okay? We are seeing development or proposed development across our attendance area. When you look at the green dots, you can see that they're predominantly located in the southern portion of our attendance area. And then you can see our red, the apartments, are primarily located in and around the city of Greenville, but then they also go along the 385 corridor. You can see a few of them scattered out there. And then looking at smaller scaled subdivisions, you can see there's an array everywhere scattered throughout our attendance area. Looking at the economy, we are still seeing large job announcements. We have Safe Industries with announcing 80 jobs in Piedmont, Span America, 100 jobs in Pelham Road. There's an untitled announcement where they'll provide more details at a later time with 140 jobs. There's a Vermeer Corporation with 100 jobs. So creation of 420. I did put down here GE Vernova and Isuzu. We included them in last year's presentation, but they were announced very early last year. And those are quite substantial with 230 and 700 job announcements. Looking at what people are saying around us, what is the rhetoric that we are seeing in regards to our attendance area for population and economy. You can see the title on the bottom left from Fox Business talking about how Greenville is a hot spot. It's in reference to home listings and the increase that they were seeing. You can look on the bottom right. We continue to be a desirable location for both tourists and new residents. And then the top right two articles talking about the growth of our automotive and manufacturing sectors. I did want to point out this article on the top left is it's pretty recent. It's from the South Carolina Department of Employment and Workforce, and they are using more recent U.S. Census Bureau data. And one of the highlight of it is that South Carolina is the fastest growing state in the United States by percentage. When looking at the data points, they break down our new residents in the state of South Carolina, and we've really been led by domestic migration, so residents from neighboring or faraway states. But also we saw a surge in international migration to the state of South Carolina, but recently in 2025, between 25 and 24, we saw a steep decrease in that migration. So that's something that we'll continue to track. Looking at charter, homeschool, and virtual enrollment, charter virtual enrollment trends within our attendance area. Here, you can see the Greenville County homeschool enrollment from 2021 to 2025. You can see the year-over-year increase that we've experienced since 2020. We were continuing to grow through that until this most recent year, but continued to traject upwards. Looking at our charter school enrollment, we have Greenville, these are the brick and mortar charter schools. You can see it also illustrates a growth year over year since 2021. Most recently in 25-26, we had Green Simpsonville add additional grades at their facility, and then Greer Prep Academy opened up this most recent year. Here are some new and revised charter announcements within our attendance area. Just mentioned Greer Prep Academy. They'll be opening a new facility off Locust Hill and Mountain View Road in Taylors. They'll be adding grades 3, 4, 5, and 8th, and with a full build out of 762 students. We have Legacy Early College with the South Carolina Public Charter School District that announced plans to expand to 3,000 by 2028. And then they have identified a new facility off West Marion Road, and that's construction slated to begin in this academic year. Eastlink Academy moved to the South Carolina Public Charter School District. They were previously with Limestone, but that closed. So that'll be for the current academic year. And we also wanted to note Libertas Academy. It's not in our attendance area, but it's in the city of Woodruff, but it's just outside our attendance area. So we're going to continue tracking that. That's a K-8 facility with 1,000 students. We continue to monitor all proposed charter schools. There were 7 applications filed in January. And then they'll go for approval in March or April. So we'll continue to monitor that. And 6 of those 7 had an opening date of 27 to 28. Last year, we brought up the charter school virtual enrollment within our attendance area in the state and the increase that we were seeing. This year, from 2024 to 2025, we actually saw a slight decrease of Greenville County residents participating in that program. But you can see the state total continues to increase, and they had an increase of over 1,000 resident students. Now, looking at our own data, our demographic and enrollment data, here we have enrollment change from 15th day to 15th day. We'll look at elementaries, grades 5K to 5th. You can see that surge of enrollment we had in 2020 of students returning to the system of 1,515. And then we continue to see that growth year over year for 3 additional years. And then most recently, we saw a decrease of 703, most likely contributed to a smaller kindergarten class, a larger 5th grade exiting, and a less influx of new resident students. Then looking at the middle grades, you can see we've had a year-over-year decrease since 2020-21. Then it's a decrease slightly in the volume that we were losing in 23-24. And then that had a steep increase most recently in 25-26. Looking at the high school grades, we also had that surge of enrollment in 2020-21, and it preceded large growth, 942, 863, 407. And then as those large classes begin to start exiting our system, we're seeing a decrease in enrollment of 166, and then this year 508. We also like to note our transiency data in Greenville County Schools. We've had some consistent data points the last 2 years, and then we're starting to see slight changes here, or moderate changes. We have the number of students that have moved within our attendance area year over year. We saw 6,737 students. That's a decrease from the year prior, where we had just over 7,200 changes in residents. Looking at the number of students no longer in GCS, that was at 7,080 this year, previously 6,941. So seeing that number increase. Looking historically, that number was traditionally in the low 6,000, so it's continually gone up there. Then looking at the number of current students that are new to GCS this year, and that number is 5,688. And that was quite a large reduction from the year prior, where we had 6,703, so over 1,000 students that were new to our system. Another note is our Hispanic growth. You can see here we've had substantial growth in our Hispanic enrollment. The last 3 years, we averaged 971 new Hispanic students. growth of 1,094, 882, 938, and then we're just under 40 new students this current academic year. Looking back further out, since 2006, we've averaged over 600 new Hispanic students. So that's something that we'll also continue tracking. With the decrease in enrollment, that's provided us more opportunity to provide school choice for our students. Here you can see the last 3 years, and we've had a growth in our school choice of 557 students. We've added an increase of 300 at the elementary level, almost 50 at the middle school level, and then over 200 at the high school level. These numbers include our change in assignment, CTC, IB, and magnet students. Looking to the future, our enrollment projections, I first want to go over our grade progression ratios, okay? So essentially what these numbers are is the ratio at which students are going from one grade to the next year over year. So this number would represent from first to second grade year over year. Okay, if the number is white, that ratio indicates an annual decrease. If you look at the black ratios, those indicate an annual increase, or that number remains static. Okay, so I've outlined red 2021 and 2022 as a stochastic event. That was COVID. We saw significant change, kind of an outlier system that really fluctuated numbers. Looking prior to the red, you can see we were pretty consistent in our historical grade progression ratios. Not a lot of variability. If there was, you're looking at a 0.01 decimal change. But then after that event, you can see the numbers start changing in colors. And so you're seeing more variability in the grade progression ratios. So we do this for every school, every grade, and we track it to try to understand what's going on. I'll point out a few. If you look at 5th to 6th grade, you can see prior to 2020, 0.96, 0.97, 0.97, 0.97, pretty consistent. We have that drastic change of in 2020, decrease, increase. Then looking after, we kind of level out 0.96, 0.96, 0.97, then a sharp decrease in 0.92. Looking at high school, you can look at that 8th to 9th. You can see that surge of enrollment here, 1.17, 1.16. We start leveling out, 1.13, 1.13, and then a steep decrease at 1.07. So these are something that we track, understand to help project enrollment. Looking at our 5K enrollment, I have two things here. I have a table on the left that depicts our cohort percentage. So this is the percent of students that we received from birth 5 years prior, okay? So pre-2020, you can see 92.5, 91.65, 91.22, 92.34, very consistent. The low 90 percentage of the births were coming to Greenville County schools. In 2020, we see a sharp decrease. Then we kind of level out in the upper 80s, 88, 87, 87, 86. So being consistent in the high 80s. And then most recently in 2025, you see 83.76, so a steep decrease in the percent of students. Looking on the right side, we have a graph. The yellow line depicts the total births. The blue line depicts our 5K historical enrollment. And then the red and green are projected enrollment numbers. You can see here that the yellow and the blue, we have a tighter band here, so indicating that higher percentage of students. And then we see the split that occurs at 2020. Then when we return back to a more stable number, it's wider, indicating that less percentage. But what you can see is we had that drop off this year, and that coincides that drop off there. The one thing I do want to point out is the red and the green line. The red line would indicate that our cohort percentage for 5K were to decrease. So that's if we were to continue dropping below 83%. The green line would be a return back to the upper 80s in our cohort percentage. What's important to note is that you see growth at both of those lines. And the reason for that is because the total births in Greenville County are beginning to increase. So we had this drop off 5 years ago, 2020, and that's our current K5 or 5K class. But then the last several years, we've seen an increase in total births. And recently in 2025, the most that we had on record since 1988. So looking to the future of elementary enrollment, you can see that surge we experienced after 2020, and then we peak in 2024, and then we had a decrease, and then we're projected to decrease again with a larger fifth grade exiting, that smaller kindergarten class we just had. And then with the total births increasing, you see that elementary school projection start to creep back up year over year through 2030. Looking at our middle school enrollment, you can see the year-over-year decrease I mentioned earlier since 2020. That continues through 2026. Then with the grade progression ratios returning slightly higher, you can see that our population begins to increase again at 27, 28. And then once the smaller, that kindergarten class comes back through, you see it decrease slightly. Look at the high school enrollment, you see the surge of enrollment from 21 to 23, and as those larger classes begin to exit the system, we see the decrease year over year, but then we level back out in 2028, 2029, but we're still higher than we were prior to 2020. So in summary, you can see the total county population has continued to increase. School-age children have grown, but it's slight growth, and the total percentage actually decreased. Ages 22 to 39 are showing an increase in both total and percentage. That's important because of the capabilities of increasing the total births in our attendance area. You see residential development has continued to stabilize since 2020. Our charter and homeschool enrollment continues to increase. We've had opportunities to expand school choice with the slow growth in our enrollment, and then the student population projections reflect slowed growth and an increased enrollment options outside of our attendance area. Looking at projects to be occupied by 2030, most recently we had additions at both Fountain Inn High School and Woodland Elementary, as well as opening Reedy Laurel Elementary in 2025. Looking at Northwest Middle School and Ralph Chandler Addition in 2027. And then we have the Fountain Inn K-8 conversion in 28, as well as the new Bryson Middle School. Important to note that the Fountain Inn K-8 will be in Bryson Middle School's attendance area. Bryson Middle School will be outside of their attendance area, so there'll be adjustments there. But the seats added, it's actually the same capacity. So it's important to note that. Then we have other projects, Food and Nutrition Services Center in 2026, the Central Office Addition in 2027, the Donaldson Career Center in 2029, as well as the new South Bus Center in 2030. Looking a little bit further out, we have projects occupied by 2035. We have additions at Grove and Montague in 2031, as well as a renovation at Welcome in 2031. Then we have the Crestview renovation, a Hughes renovation replacement in 2032, and then a Tanglewood Middle School addition in 2033. Looking at other projects, we have the J. Harley Bonds Career Center renovation and replacement in 2031, Inaree Career Center and renovation replacement in 2033, as well as the Golden Strip Career Center in 2033, and then West Greenville occupancy of 2033 with a proposed to move that date to August of 2031. Now I'm going to hand it over.
Before you hand it over, it might be good to take questions related to your population projections and that sort, so they don't have to hold those through.
Absolutely. Yes.
As far as the charter schools are concerned, I did not see that you had green charter schools. Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. This is so new. As far as, and this is Amanda Brett, by the way, the green charter schools are concerned, I didn't see those in your presentation. Are those different than what we're looking at? Are you just doing new charter schools up there?
Yeah, I believe
Were they up there and I just missed it?
No, we just listed the new announcements
Okay.
or changes. They
Okay.
are listed in the actual document itself.
Okay.
But yeah, the various green, Simpsonville,
Sure.
the one off Pelham, all those are listed with student count.
Okay, so these were just the new ones that have applied for charters, is that right? Okay.
Just,
I gotcha.
I think last year we listed out every single
one,
one.
okay.
And that's still in the document. This was just changes that we were noting.
Okay,
Yep.
good, thank you.
It
And
would include not just new, but also Because a couple of those, they're expanding.
Expanding.
enrollment.
That's
So
correct.
they're existing
Okay.
and expanding.
Okay, and Drew, I gotta say, I'm glad that there are people like you who can compile numbers like this for people like us to understand them, so thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions, Dr. Presley?
Thank you, Dr. Stiles. Quick question about the Hughes occupancy timeline, Hughes Middle. Has that always been 2032, Drew, or did that get pushed back? Hughes Academy.
I believe if you go back in the original plan, it has moved this way. It's been moved earlier.
Okay.
I think you'd have to go back several years, because the first time these appeared would have been in the FY '22 long-range plan. Is that right, Ron?
It would have coincided.
And I seem to remember it's at 2032. It might have been at like 2033.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Gill Caldwell?
Burke, I was looking at our real plan, and I didn't see the changes for West Greenville School in this plan. Did you not change it in the plan? Because West Greenville School is supposed to be on the site of the old Donaldson Center, Career Center, and I'm still seeing that you have it as the site on Thomas E. Kearns, and we had that discussion.
I'm not sure what you're looking at. There is
It's-
no plan to put it anywhere except.
Down
the
at
site-
Donaldson
the
Center.
former site of Donaldson.
It's still in this plan right here.
Is that the old plan?
That's the
The one.
2021.
You're
This-
looking at I believe you're looking at the
I'm looking at what-
2021 physical condition report of the schools that we had assessed.
I'm looking at, it says March 10th, 2026.
I think that was when Nancy loaded it in. What you're looking at is the 21 report.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Understandable, but I think that's what you were looking at is the, we didn't go back and edit in any way the facilities report from 21, we just added it as it was.
Thank you, Ms. Goodwin Caldwell. Do you have additional questions? Ms. Goodwin Caldwell, do you have additional questions?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Doolin?
Thank you. On slide 18, it reflects that there are roughly 1,500, a little bit more than 1,500 students that were not enrolled this year. But then 2 slides later, there are 1,000 Hispanic students fewer. And are the 1,000 Hispanic students included in the 1,500?
So that's representative of new enrollees. So historically, we would grow 1,000 student
Right.
year over year, and then we saw just a slight increase in growth. So
It's a huge decrease of what would be expected,
Correct,
though,
correct.
of roughly 1,000.
And then you can see here, we had in the transiency data, that bottom line, that's 1,000 less new students than we've historically seen from the previous year.
One thing that might help, Drew, if you go back to the high school, you've heard us say this before. See all these negative numbers in here. See these really large numbers in high school? So in each of the last 3 years, we have graduated really large classes. Now go back to your growth chart.
Projections.
Now you can flip past it.
Oh,
This one, go back, right there.
right.
These are not students leaving, these are students that didn't show up, for lack of a better way of looking at it. So you see, in this particular demographic, Hispanic growth, the average there is gonna run about 936. Between that number and that large graduating number, That is one of the largest explanations for why our current total enrollment is less than it was in previous years. There's some other explanations like birth rate, but those two numbers right there, that accounts for a huge amount of the lesser population, which you'll see reflected when we present you the general fund budget later this spring. We will be, as we've already mentioned to you, we'll be adjusting to our formula allocation. This is how we allocate almost every position throughout the schools to reflect that we have a reduced population. Now, there's every reason to believe that at a point down the road, that growth will occur again. Maybe not at the same rate, but it will occur again.
Okay, thank you. That answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Doolin. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
So, Garm, if you want to talk about the specifics of construction, I shall.
Thanks, Rick. Hold on. Well, good morning. The CIP you're seeing this year is largely similar to what you saw last year, with a couple of changes, a few additions, and one escalation. Starting with the new facility items reported in this year's plan, we have 5 schools that, well, we all know as our county continues to grow, traffic is increasing. But at 5 of our schools, we have an acute traffic problem that we took a look at. Those schools include Bethel Elementary, Bryson Elementary, Greenbrier Elementary, Skyland Elementary, and Wade Hampton High School, for those who may be sitting in the back. We studied those. We took input from the principals, our assistant superintendents, had some professionals outside the district and also inside take a look at those. And not only do we need to extend the car rider loops to get more of the traffic off the main road in front of the school, increase safety, but we also have the ability at those locations to extend the car rider loops with the current campus that we have without having to purchase additional land. Secondly, we are in the process of finishing the LED project for the remaining schools that were not able to be accomplished in an earlier program that was called QZAP. We are finishing those. That's upgrading the lighting within the schools as well as the exterior and the parking lots. And now that we're completing that, we've included upgrading the lighting systems at our stadiums from the current lighting, which is what's called metal halide lighting system, to LEDs. That's going to do a number of things for us. First of all, for our athletes, it provides a better quality of light with the field. But with these new LED systems, we're also able to hone in the actual light that in a lot of cases with these old systems spills out into the community, and make sure we're focusing the light on the field. Ms. Presley mentioned it earlier, but when we were at Greenville High School for the site visit for the artificial turf, Dr. Royster mentioned the condition of the existing bleachers, the concrete bleachers. That is a large stadium, 12,000 seats. And contrary to some opinions, concrete will not last if you don't take care of it. It's a porous material, and so there have been a few things that have been tried over the say the last 10 years to extend the life of the stadium. Without a lot of success, but there are some great systems out there right now that not only weatherproof the bleachers, but they're going to extend that life way out. The current bleacher infrastructure has some spalling concrete. In some cases, we've got some exposed rebar. And so we're going to go in there and we're going to renovate, make sure we get everything looking new, and then put a coating system on there that's going to take us far down the road. Robotics, sweepers, and scrubbers. Technology is hitting us everywhere. We have had the opportunity over the last, well, since August, shall we say, to deploy these robotic sweepers and scrubbers at 8 of our schools. And it's amazing what these are able to do. They don't make mistakes. They can be run when school is in session. And they do a fantastic job. And what it has allowed us to do is for our custodians to now spend more quality time on some of the areas that are really important, like touch points in our classrooms, in our offices, in the cafeteria, more time in gymnasiums and throughout the school. So what we've included here is providing one of these devices at least, and in some cases more, especially at our high schools, that will cover the entire school district. Project cost impacts. Public sector construction continues to remain strong right now, but the private developer has not quite increased to what it was before rates went up and also COVID. So we're the beneficiaries of that right now because we've got lots of contractors and design professionals that are coming to us. As a matter of fact, we've got Donaldson on the street right now. And how many architects have we had interest from?
We have 11 architects.
So 11 architects. So that
Probably double what you normally
Correct.
Yes, sir. Materials, last year, we were still looking at huge increases in materials, especially in the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing arena. Those seem to have stabilized for now. Labor continues to be fairly steady in that there's not enough out there, but it has not gotten appreciably worse, at least in our area of construction. So, and Dr. Royster mentioned it earlier, so what, all that to say, we think we're getting back to a relatively normal inflation increase as opposed to the crazy things we saw over the last 5 years. Now, one topic in the state right now is steel. It just passed the House, as I understand, unanimously to limit municipalities, subdivisions like us, and state agencies to only using American-made steel. Now, our contractors, for the most part, use only American-made steel. The problem is once you put one of those limiting factors in there, more than likely that's going to increase the cost because of supply and demand issues. So we don't know if that's going to get through the Senate, if it's even going to be considered for this year, but it is something we're watching closely right now. Next slide. Adjusted occupancy. And I think Drew mentioned this earlier, but when we moved Donaldson Career Center up, we're now proposing moving West Greenville up in the timeline to align with that. So Donaldson will have an occupancy of 2029 and West Greenville 2031. We'll also save money in moving that forward. The big change in the CIP this year is changing J. Harley Bonds from a very small demolition and replacement to recommending that we replace the entire existing construction, 1954, the old Greer High School, demolishing that and replacing it with the new J. Harley Bonds Career Center on the same site. There is a building, Dr. Royster referred to it earlier, the High Bay Shop building that was constructed in 2002. That will remain, but the proposal is to replace everything else there. We think it's will give us a lot more, obviously, longevity for that campus, but also it's a better use of our dollars, especially since the cost to upgrade that current facility and perform that small project is, the cost to do that is better than 50% of what it would be to replace the entire thing. And that's about the tipping point where you start looking at replacement versus maintain. We've also made a modest increase for capital equipment. Particularly vehicles over the last few years have spiked and are continuing to. And we have a number of district vehicles for our maintenance crews and others in this room. And then a modest increase for site acquisition so that we can continue to support the long-range facility plan. And with that, I will turn it over to Greg Porter.
We have some questions.
Oh, yes.
Do we have questions? Ms. Goodwin Caldwell?
Mr. Carter.
Yes, ma'am.
On the J. Harley Barnes, I was looking at the amount that you had down there, and you just said it was like, the cost was 50% of whatever you're gonna replace it with. But you had a cost down there first, in our first plan, of 10 million. Now you have a cost of 52 million.
Yes, ma'am. So.
And tell me why we are demoing that building?
So if you take the cost of the current planned project, and you add in the cost of what it's going to take if we don't replace it, to bring that building up to standards, particularly when it comes to mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire safety.
Well, what was the 10 million for?
The 10 million was to do a very minor alteration to J. Harley in the cosmetics area and also the administrative area.
I know that that is a career center, but
Yes, ma'am.
you saying that we need a new building there?
That's what we're recommending, yes.
I'll tell you what might help clarify that. That 10 million, that would have gone up significantly based on our analysis of the condition of the building now. In other words, 10 million would not have renovated that building. So when they ran numbers on what it's gonna take, because you gotta think about, we've got plumbing issues there, the plumbing needs to be upgraded. You've got significant electrical issues there, the electrical would have to be upgraded. When you start looking at that, the number we would have had to put into that $10 million number, add to it, to actually renovate it to the level it needed to be renovated, would have resulted in a price tag more than 50% of the cost of building new. The advantage also with building new, one is obviously the longevity of the building. You're talking about a building that's now more than, approaching 75 years old.
Yes, sir.
That's pretty much the lifespan of the building. There's also space there we don't need. There's space that we do need that's not there, because it was a high school. It's got a bunch of regular classrooms in it. And when you go to try to change that space into something else, you start doing that reconfiguration, that adds cost in addition to the system. So we've got the opportunity to build something that is more conducive to its purpose, instead of repurposing a regular high school. We also have the opportunity to change the layout. You've been over there, you got like 3 floors here, then you go down to a lower floor where culinary arts is, that huge welding lab is, and a number of the offices are. Then we've got that new row, built in 2001.
2002.
2002. Those high-bay shops are in excellent condition. They were built in 2002. They would stay there. And we can reconfigure that because we also have over there MSAP that serves that area of the county. We have satellite diploma that serves that area of the county. And we have HSAP that serves that, the eastern side of the county. And the one down here at Sullivan Center serves the western side of the county. So we have the opportunity to configure that in a way that's more conducive to its use, and to further separate those things from the career center part, and reorient the building. Because now it's extremely confusing the way it's oriented. The front is the back, and the back is the front.
Did I answer?
Side will be the front.
That's what when I saw that price, I just needed
Yes,
to
ma'am.
know.
Well, I think the kind of short version is that 10 would have jumped way up in this presentation, and in lieu of us jumping that 10 way up, what we're recommending to you is build new, demo and build new.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Goodwin Caldwell. Ms. Middleton?
Thank you for this. I was actually somewhat surprised about the Bond Center being, basically it would be torn down and rebuilt. I'm really happy because every time I go by there, it's just such an old, it's like something from the Brady Bunch, like the 60s or something. And yeah, it definitely needs to be fixed. It has like a mismatch inside, like Dr. Royster mentioned, a very odd setup and everything. I think it'll make a big difference. I can sort of speak to that from being in the FBI. And our old building on Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington DC was also built, I think in the 60s or maybe early 70s. That building got so many problems that, with plumbing and trying to fix it, it's just monstrous, impossible. And they never could really, they never could upgrade it. And now they've actually moved most of the FBI out into other locations, and the building is probably going to become defunct in some way. But that kind of reminded me of that, these older buildings that are just, there's not much you can do. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'm excited to see how that progresses.
Well, the vast majority of public institutions, certainly school districts in the state agencies, the vast preponderance of them do not invest the dollars that need to be invested so you don't, at the end of the road, get to a deferred maintenance problem. And that's where we were before BEST. But this board, and preceding boards obviously, have done an amazing job of providing the necessary resources to make sure that we maintain high-quality facilities that can be maintained and don't get into a situation where you're just throwing mud against the wall trying to address the latest emergency.
Well, thank you for that. It's very much needed there. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Middleton. Ms. Leventis Wells?
Colonel, when is this project to begin now with the changes and everything? When is this scheduled?
So when would we begin? Oh, Jamie, let's see, if we're 2031?
You're talking bonds specifically.
Yes, just
We
fine.
begin construction in 2029? Probably. Actually, maybe sooner, because we're going to have an active campus.
I would think that 29 would be the latest that we would get started out there. We would want to start working on the programming effort as soon as we possibly could, so that we could go ahead and anticipate what the needs were, and then figure out what the future building needs to look like to support all of the programs there. So.
That will obviously be, as I sort of alluded to, complicated by the fact that we've got to occupy it while we build new.
Right.
Which will considerably drive design. We don't want it to limit us where we don't have as effective a facility, which will probably require more time and more effort to plan it that way. But as you'll recall from the BEST program, when we were building, we literally built some schools beside schools, and we moved everybody in portables in some schools. Well, portables not really an option on a career center, so we've got to figure out a way to run it and build simultaneously. It'll take a little more logistical effort.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a question that was submitted from Mr. Sailors via email, and I'll read that question, and it pertains to slide number 9, and then I'll come back to you, Ms. Middleton. The presentation references projects that have been approved or submitted to Greenville County for permitting. The question is, how many of these projects are currently under construction?
We'll have to get that to you at a later date.
Okay, all right. And then his final question was, can the administration provide the board with a list that reflects the location of each residential project and the school or schools where students from these communities would attend? Okay, thank you so much. All right, back to you.
He may have said that so low that I don't know if it picked it up, but his response was yes to both of those.
Thank you so much.
We're not used to doing this yet either.
All right, Ms. Middleton, back to you.
Just real quickly, the Bond Center is a pretty significant portion of land, so will also they be working on the parking area to redesign that or whatever at that time, or it'll be the whole thing, right?
You know, without getting into winning involving design folks, but I'm gonna imagine that parking area will end up being where the building sits. Because the other areas there to expand, there's a tremendous drop in elevation. If you think about it, when you come into the back, the old football stadium is back there, and there's probably a 25, 30-foot drop in elevation. So now we, get a whole lot of thinking on, can we somehow use that? But if you think about it, kind of not having gone into great design detail, probably the logical place for that building to sit is kind of where that parking lot sits. It also, as they examine that, it may be possible to demo part of it and use that in the design. Because there are portions of that that could be demoed separately from other parts. Now, we gotta have a place for things, functions there to go. But there's a huge auditorium there. Well, that's not essential to the operation of a career center.
No.
So that's a possibility. There's some possibility of demoing of that wing that goes down with Culinary Arts building. But that's more difficult to, how might we deal with that over a 2-year construction period? So a lot of that stuff is just gonna depend on the input we get from design firms, and along with the input from the Career Center, Mr. Williams. It will be, it's a little bit challenging, but it is nothing we've not successfully done multiple times, but more so than the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Middleton. Ms. Leventis Wells, did you have an additional question?
Yes, please. And I'm not sure, but how many projects do we have currently going, and when are they, how many are we going to have starting up in the next couple of years or so?
Okay, so if you, I don't know if you have it in front of you, maybe look it on there. If you will go to the, keep going. We're gonna go all the way to Robin's slides. Right here. So if you go to that, which I believe has everything on it, we didn't lose it. You should be able to look at this, and then we have another one that has it laid out by year. I don't know if you have that in here, do you, Robin? Yeah. It's not in the slides, but it's in the packet. It will be. Okay. We'll put this in the packet,
Okay,
but that's the easiest way to look at it.
all righty.
Because you can see where they go over, say, 3 years, and you'll see which ones overlap.
Okay,
We'll make sure that's in your packet. We didn't try to put it, if you, as you can tell by looking at the print on that, we try to put that up here.
yeah,
You can do the same thing here, it's just harder to follow.
right.
You can go to that and you can pretty much figure 3 years back. So that would start in 24, because it takes us 3 years. You might start design a little bit outside of 3 years, then you're gonna see the draws, the construction payouts over 3 years. The center year is always the highest amount.
Okay,
The first one covers most of the preliminary work, might cover grading, site prep. The center one is the bulk of the building construction, and the third one, obviously, is the finishing up of the building. So they almost always will go like this.
Dr. Lister, it actually is in the packet, it's page 39 of the plan document.
page 39.
Okay.
And if you're like me, then you'll have to make that whole magnifying glass.
Oh, my own.
Instead of trying to read.
37. Oh,
That is a lot of stuff on one sheet. Thank you. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Robin.
Do you have additional questions, Ms.
No, I think
Leventis?
That's good.
Okay.
I mean, I've
Thank
gotta
you.
just look at all this and process it.
Colonel Carlin, there's one final question from Mr. Sailors. I know you have somewhat already spoken to this, but I will address these two questions because he
Yes,
sent them in, and if you want to provide additional information, you may. The process, and he's referring to slide 35. The processes that have been highlighted in previous slides related to the decision process of whether to renovate or build new are completely understandable. To that end, when looking at projects that are projected 5 to 10 years out, how is the district calculating the inflation factor?
So in our current long-range facility plan, for all those projects that Dr. Royster was talking about along the timeline and the ones that you saw vertically on the previous slide, those all carry a 3% escalation factor for every year. Now, for the projects that are, like you said, 10 years out, so we're putting our best, educated guess on what the cost is going to be. As we get closer to the actual start date, if we've noticed some anomalies, like with material cost or contractor labor or the availability of contractors because private developer work has shot through the roof again, we will come back to, in consultation with Dr. Royster, we'll come back to you with some recommended adjustments to those as we get closer to the actual start date.
And he had a question in regard to the fluctuations of the steel prices, and I assume that will also be an adjustment for the future if needed.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And that concludes Mr. Saylor's questions. Last call for questions? All right, we have no further questions.
Ms. Stack?
Thank y'all very much. So they've talked about all of the recommendations that have been given to the finance side, and we're going to talk about the financing plan. So this first screen shows the projects and what the board had approved through FY 2025. And then on the other side of those numbers, we see what the recommendations are for fiscal year 2026. And the projects that have recommendations for change are highlighted green. Okay.
If you would back up just a minute. We use that for a reference. Go back another one. All right. Because Robin just mentioned to you highlighted in green were changes. If you read down there real quickly, you'd see a highlight change in security enhancements. I believe it was a plus $6 million. That is really solely for this purpose. A BDA, bidirectional amplifier, is basically a repeater for a radio. If you go inside a building and you're carrying a radio and you push the button to talk, it may or may not pass through the brick and masonry walls. Well, that's important in regular operations, but it's extremely important in emergency operations. So several years ago, they changed the fire code standard. Now, like our new buildings, like Reedy Law, it probably has one in there, Jamie, or two, maybe one.
Put in with intent.
So if we built new, they have those in it, but new being very recent new construction. Most of the best era buildings don't have it. And they are predominantly concrete, in fact, they're that preformed concrete, and steel. Difficult for a signal to get out and a signal to get in. It's the reason for the change in the fire code. Now, they granted significant leeway in working through this with existing buildings. Because you can imagine, we've got 106 buildings, 106 campuses, some of them have, a few of them have multiple buildings on them. So we need to go back and put in these BDAs, these repeaters, to pick up the signal from a handheld radio and retransmit it. Retransmit a signal coming in and repeat it to the handheld radio. For fire, EMS, law enforcement, and I believe we're getting these tuned such that it will enhance our system. So putting that in place, we have a study underway right now as to how many are necessary in a building. There may be some of those 106 that don't require one at all. That'll be a handful. Most of them are going to require at least one. High schools are going to require multiple ones. So based on the estimation of the studies done to this point, this would cover installing these throughout the schools in the district, and we would fund that in such a way we could do that as quickly as possible. I don't think it's spread out over a 3 year.
No, it's not.
It's basically set up where, some of this funding comes from our request to you to use fund balance, where we can get that in place. I didn't want, Greg's not with us, and I didn't want to skip that over, and when I saw it at the bottom, that, I think that was a good time to mention that. But I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay. All right, so this screen focuses only on the recommended changes for 2026. Two sections, there's a facilities project section and a capital equipment replacement program section. The first project is the West Greenville School, which is a new building on a new site at Donaldson Center. The recommendation was to align that construction better with the Donaldson Career Center, which means it will be accelerated, their occupancy date will be accelerated by 2 years, which also makes us have a decrease in cost of $1.8 million. The next facility project is J. Harley Bonds, which is a new building, and the final cost for it at this time is $62.3 million, which includes the additional $52.1 million. Under the capital equipment replacement programs, the first line is the site acquisition line, and it is recommended to be increased by $3.2 million. The capital equipment and replacement annual allocation, there's a recommendation to increase that line item by $100,000 annually. The capital equipment and replacement for the robotic sweepers and scrubbers, the initial purchase is, I can't see it, $9.3 million. The same line item, but for the replacement of the robotic sweepers and scrubbers, is $11.8 million, and that funding is put in place in 2023, 33, 2034, and 2035. So those 3 years in the future, we're preparing for the replacement of the initial purchase of robotic sweepers and scrubbers. The next line is your stadium LED lighting project. It is a $5.7 million ask. The extended car rider loop to improve traffic flow is a $9.6 million increase. And then the stadium seating renovation at Serene Stadium will be funded through a current line item on the CIP, which is athletic enhancements. The next item, we go to security enhancements. The first line, which has no green on it, is just the annual allocation each year. But beneath it is the ask for the BDA funding, which is an additional $6 million. And again, the changes in green are the recommendations for FY 2026. Which leads me to the final screen. The recommendation to fund the CIP as presented is within our current bond funding structure, and there's no anticipated millage increase. We also would ask for the transfer of $33,847 from the unassigned general fund balance to the building fund to accomplish these recommendations. And I think that's it. Questions?
We have additional questions? Ms. Linda Leventis
So
Wells?
can you go back to the last slide? So when we say no anticipated millage increase, define what that really means.
It means inside the current millage rate for GO bond issue, which is
48.5.
48.5.
There won't be a millage increase.
No millage increase.
No millage increase.
As I mentioned at the outset, since 1999, there have been 6 millage increases for debt service and 2 millage decreases for debt service. So the millage in 26 years has been increased net 4 times about 4 point.
It's
I think you have 6 mills net since '99. So in 26 years, it's gone up 6 mills. We try to avoid it going up at all. As I mentioned earlier, when you start looking at that over time, we're not looking just at what we're asking of you and recommended to you this year. We're looking at, can this be funded over the entire 10 years or 12, staying inside that millage rate? Because I think it might be a good time to talk just a little bit about it. So, you know, we have debt service. Which you sell bonds, we, the district, sells bonds to investors. Then we, the district, you all by vote of the board, levies a tax. And this tax, unlike school operating where you don't pay on your owner-occupied, everybody pays on the debt service side. Everybody pays. You own a house, boat, car, business, whatever, you pay on debt service. So we sell bonds. And we repay them the same year. We sell them in
September.
September. And we repay them at the end of the year.
Yes.
That is the way throughout South Carolina that schools build buildings, pay for equipment, and pay for major repairs. Now, not minor repairs, they pay for that out of the general fund. We have purposely over time taken anything out of the general fund we can possibly take out of it that qualifies under this and put it in here to minimize the impact of the general fund. So for buildings, you've got the amount of bonds. And you will recall that we will say, and right now we've got 206,663. In GO bonds, general obligation bonds. We sold that many bonds in September.
Yes, sir.
And we'll pay that back. All of us that live in the boundaries of Greenville County Schools will pay that back at the end of the year, and every year we do the same thing. In addition to that, we've got 9.5 million in other, and I'm calling it other, it's the state, but we don't get state funds for buildings. What we do get state funds for is tax money that by act of the state, they removed from us, or they're the ones that decide how much you pay. For example, on your house, there's a $100,000 exemption. Everybody in here that owns a house. On the debt service side, there's a $100,000 exemption from the value of your house. So average house in Greenville County 6 months ago was $350,000. So you don't pay debt service on $350,000. You pay it on $250,000. And the state sends us an amount of money to replace that with. Now, it doesn't equal what that value would be. But for that purpose, we get $4.2 million for that exemption. And if you're over 65, there's another $50,000. So if you're over 65 and you own the average house, you're paying on a $200,000 house, not a $350,000 house. The other money that comprises that 9.5 would be motor carriers, but that's local money. Motor carriers based here. But the money goes from here to the state back to us. So they're giving us some money for this homestead exemption they passed. Not equal to what the amount it would bring in, but some money. Manufacturers can depreciate equipment. Years ago, they could depreciate it to 30% of its value over, I think it was like a 15-year period. All right, that means if you were in a business where you had a bunch of equipment, over 15 years, you could depreciate it where it was worth 30% of what its original value was. Then they changed the depreciation to 15%. Now you can depreciate it to 0%. So they send us some money to offset the fact they changed that law about depreciation on manufacturers' equipment. So the total they send us is that. Then our best payment is 72,
78.
78. A year. 78 million. So the difference between this and these two numbers is how much we have to do all these other things with. And then you'll notice that we spread them all out over 3 years. One, that's the most economical way to do it, but it also is the way that it matches the way you have to pay. Now, if it's a small project, you might spread it over 2 years, like maybe a renovation or an addition, small addition. Other projects like those PDAs, we may be able to do all those in 1 year. But that's the source of the revenue. Now, one of the issues with this, so we sold 206,663. All right, so we don't want to go over 48.5, right? We've said that to you, and we've never gone over that. So we will estimate how much we can get for 48.5. Let's say it's 210 million. So we'll probably ask you to approve, if we thought it would be up to 210 million, approve up to issue bonds not to exceed the payment back for $210 million. Because here's what we don't know. We do not know when we ask you this, unless we ask you 24 hours before we sell them. We don't know how much we can pay back the debt, because we do not know. The missing number is what? You know what it is? The missing number is bond interest. We don't know that. We literally don't know it till we go sell the bonds. So that's the reason we say up to a dollar amount, because we want to be sure we're inside that. And we got to make sure that we're funding what we said we were going to fund. That's why we never ask for a precise amount, we say up to. And when they're sitting in there and they see what the actual rate is, then they will sell, maybe it's 206, maybe it's 210. The problem if it's 205. But we've got a small reserve that if it were 205, we'd cover that out of that reserve. You see that listed in your monthly financial statements. The whole idea behind this is to try to make this millage line just like that it stays flat. So again, 26 years, it has gone up a total of $6 million net. You may have heard me reference this example before. When we programmed Fountain Inn High School, you may remember there was a desire to do that building earlier. Had we funded based on that desire, the millage rate would have gone up 12 mils in that year. So we recommended that the project be moved out. When we recommended moving it out, it created like a 6 mil increase, which has since been decreased slightly. So we're always trying to be steadily inside that number, because you also, you know, I think one of the worst things we could do is be doing this all the time. And nobody can plan for that. So we've got this plan out, really probably out about 20 years.
35.
2035.
So, Dr. Royster, the best plan finishes up on the 29th?
It finishes, our last best payment is December 28th,
December 28th?
which is fiscal year 29. So the last best payment is December 28th, fiscal year 29. So it frees up that amount in fiscal year 30. So if you look out in fiscal year 30, some of those more expensive replacement schools are scheduled out there in that fiscal year 30 timeframe.
And how much are we what's the payout then?
If I remember right, the final payout is slightly larger than the 78. What is it, Ron?
Don't have it. Therese, do you have that?
I think the last payment is about 79 million.
So 79, so about $1 million more.
That's a need to know. Thank you.
Wells, Mr. Cochran?
Thank you. This is back on slide 35, but I just had a question about the cost of the robotic sweepers and scrubbers. What, in general, what does one of those machines cost in general?
What's the cost per unit? Oh, Carl, you have that with you?
Yeah. I can find it. Okay, so when we talk about unit, it's actually a set. So you've got a sweeper and a scrubber. A set costs roughly $83,784.
Some buildings take more than one. A small elementary school, one of each would be sufficient. Reed and Laurel, there's one of each. So, long-term on this, that's approved when we move that direction. One of the things that we will do is we will reduce within our custodial allocation. And we'll do two things with that. The first thing is we're going to apply some of that labor to address the area where we have the largest number of carryover work orders, which is grounds. The ability to keep our grounds up, particularly during grass season, which, for us here is like March to October. And then the difference in what it takes to crew those grounds people, so we can do a better job covering grounds and drop our carryover work orders. Because they do all kind of stuff not related to cutting grass in grounds. Then we will reduce custodial positions by some number. We don't know that till we've reformed how we do grounds. But we will ultimately reduce custodial FTEs, which will impact the general fund budget.
What's the life expectancy on one of those sets?
So we've got them programmed right now, the replacement. Robin may have said it.
Right at the 8-year point, but we're looking at replacing at years 7, 8, and 9 so that we don't have a big spike.
Now, experience with that, we may be able to get more time out of that. That's a fairly conservative number. The oldest one we had, a year or two.
The oldest one, well, we started in August.
So not quite a year. So we're going off what manufacturers say and other people's experience. We don't have enough experience yet. So that's based on best information we have.
Now, are those battery powered?
Yes, sir.
So for an average year, what would be the maintenance cost, including batteries and those type things? What did they say would probably be like the average cost for those, keeping them going?
I'd have to get that for you.
Thank you. That's all, Dr. Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Cochran. Ms. Goodwin-Caldwell?
Dr. Royster, on that, the general fund balance, is that transferred to keep us within range?
Oh, yeah, you still have, you'll be well within the range. And in fact, we plan to present fund balance requests next month. You're going to see a couple of other things in there. One is we're going to recommend and request a set-aside for additional staff development and training in the area of special education. And the other large one in there was related to, replacement of backpack. Backpack, no, software. One of the things that came out of the work we did around special ed and the feedback we got is that those parents wanted backpack type information available in a similar format for their students directly related to special needs services. Backpack's not able to do that. And in fact, we're having issues with Backpack doing the things it currently does. So that's a pretty big ask, and what we'll be asking for is to set aside enough money to procure that and operate it for, I think it's like 5 years, Robin, 5 or 6 years.
What is the balance that we have to keep in that general fund balance?
Well, your requirement and our, for lack of a better description, our level of comfort, your requirement is,
8.33% of the expenditures for the current year.
and our level of comfort is more like 22%.
Yes.
When I say level of comfort, when we thought the government was going to shut down, we had enough money in there to carry that to the end of the year. If we have something happen where the economy suddenly tanks during a year, we got enough money to at least carry us with minimally cutting during a year so we can cut in arrears. And those of you that were around in 2010, Linda, you'll remember that from being on the board, Dr. Stiles, you'll remember that, having suffered some of those cuts. Dr. Presley, you probably remember that from having been on the receiving end of some of those cuts. But we were able to make them at the end of a year for the next year instead of having to go in there and cut stuff in the middle of the year. And then we always have a cash flow issue. Because if we didn't keep more than the 8.75, we would have to issue tax anticipation notes, which is a public entity's way of borrowing money. We'd have to go borrow money on anticipation of tax revenue, then we'd have to pay it back out of tax revenue, plus, they're not gonna just let us hold it for nothing, plus the interest that they would charge us. So that's another reason we really want our fund balance to be around 20-22%.
That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goodwin Caldwell. Ms. Doolin?
Thank you. Ms. Stack, I wondered if you could make a few charts for us with some numbers. One being the dollar amount transferred from general fund balance each year for 10 years. Another one being a chart with the dollar amount for bonds sold, not necessarily the millage rate, but the actual dollar amount for 10 years. And a chart with how much we budget for property acquisition versus how much is actually spent over the last decade also. Would you have all that information?
Yeah.
That'd be great. I know you don't have it off the top of your head. My other question was, can the first responders share, or have they offered to share in the cost of that BDA radio system?
Could they share? I guess they could, but no one's offered yet.
Has anyone asked them if they're willing
Well,
to?
Yes, we've asked them, and so far they've not been willing to. They have the same issue we do. They get their money the same place we get ours.
But if we invest in this antenna program for them and they up and change their radios or something, like there's really no guarantee that if we invest in this and they change their radios or go to a different platform, then we've invested in something that becomes obsolete.
I think it's highly unlikely they would change their radios because they've, within the last 10 years, all moved to a particular band on the radio spectrum. It's also the same band that we operate within. I don't see them going away from that because it's really almost nationwide. It's certainly statewide. And if they do, I mean, our response to them would be, then you need to pay to convert these PDAs if you're going to make a change. But they're programmable within, I believe, both the 700 and 800 megahertz systems. But what we don't want to be is in a situation where we have an incident occur inside a building and that radio doesn't work.
But is that the current situation that we're in?
In some places, that would be an issue.
Okay. All right, thanks, that's it. Thank you.
Now, our SROs have the ability to communicate with our system inside their building. So they have 100% coverage, but not necessarily direct coverage. Fire departments responding would have to get with somebody in the facility to be able to do that. So it's a public safety issue. That's why they changed the requirement. And they put the requirement on the owner of the building.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Doolin. Ms. Brett?
Thank you, Dr. Stiles. Piggybacking first question to what Sarah just asked, are there, since now it is a requirement, especially for new buildings, are there grants or federal funds or anything for this, for safety or anything like that? No, of course
I
not.
mean, the only thing that exists, the state has a safety security grant. We've gotten several of them.
For the past 3 or 4 years, for sure.
Yeah, and so we've applied that to the key access, applied it to that. I'd have to get the Greg a list of all the things. You never know how much we get, but I think the largest amount we've gotten was $500,000. So that gives you an idea of kind of how much that is. And you never know until the year you're in whether you're gonna get it or not. So far, I think most districts have gotten something.
Okay. The next question, Robin, can you go to the very last slide for me? Thank you. All right, so within current bond funding structure, last year we approved how much in bond sales? Do you remember?
Not to exceed 217.
Okay,
But
so,
what we issued.
okay. So with that being the current bond funding structure, 48.5 mils, we're thinking will be operating within that, but
Will not go over that.
not go over that. But last year was a reassessment year, and it ended up that now those 48.5 mils are actually worth more than they were before, so we were at a truly 12% increase in the debt millage rate for the county. So in fact, that 48.5 mils was truly a 12% increase in taxes. So how do we work around that on, this year it won't be a reassessment year. So that will stay steady as far as that's concerned. But in December, we found out we may have raised 55 million more than we were originally thought we did. So how does all that work into this?
So go back to one thing, remember we said earlier, we want to try to keep it steady all the time. And remember, we're thinking about funding in 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years.
Right.
And we estimate, and we do it conservative, but we estimate that the value of that mill will go up between 1% and 2%, generally more than 2%. Estimate around 2%. That's built into what we're recommending, that we know that value will go up. What we believe is the millage could have been less last year. You remember me saying that?
And we're still waiting on all that information,
Well,
right?
We're still waiting on, we have had some exchange of information with Mr. Case. I believe the ball right now is in his court.
Yes, sir.
He has to reschedule the most recent meeting that you all had scheduled. But what I will say to you now, and we want to look at one more, we want to look at this month's revenue. But we don't believe it will change this. Our intent is to move that by 1 mil down, which aligns with what we believe comfortably could have happened this year. So our recommendation, it certainly is still true that it will be within, when we say current bond funding, we mean within the 48.5 mils. We believe that will be 47.5. And we'll still cover everything we recommended, and more importantly, carry the projects out the life of the timeline. Because we're not asking you, we're asking you to make a decision a year at a time, because that's the way we have to do it. But every time we're asking you to make a decision a year at a time, you're making a decision that impacts 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years. And if we err here, it can create a compounded problem here.
And I forget, we're reassessed, is it every 5 years? Is that
Every
right?
5 years.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
And it's supposed to ensure that you do not bring in more than you brought in the year before in the general fund. Debt service, what the statute compels, is that millage be set to pay the bonds that were issued. So the millage would have been set to pay this. One of the issues that we have is we don't know the general fund reassessment number, which would tell us what this is likely going to be. This year, we knew that number in October. We have to sell the bonds in September. That inhibits our own ability to estimate what a mill on debt service would do. And we can't say for sure because there's property in it It's not in the general fund, but it's a good indicator of what it could say.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Brett. Do we have other questions? Ms. Middleton?
Back to slide, I guess it's 35, West Greenville School. What is West Greenville School? Is that another career center, or is that what is it?
West Greenville School, which is a little bit of a misnomer because it's not a school anymore.
Oh.
It used to be a school.
Okay,
It houses two programs. It houses one of the MSAP programs. And it houses our program for emotionally handicapped students, grades 6 through 12. At one time, it carried the designation of a school. We didn't need those services there, so we dropped the BEDS code. In other words, we discontinued it being a school, because being a school implies certain things you have to provide that were not needed there. So it houses two programs, but we never changed the name. So it's still called West Greenville School, but it's the site of those two programs.
okay.
And likely, the administration will recommend to you at some point to change the name of it, because it was, one, no longer a school, and two, it will no longer be in West Greenville. You got between now and like 2033, I guess, to think of what would be a good name for the relocated West Greenville programs. Unless you want to just keep calling it West Greenville, which might be confusing to people if they go over there in West Greenville and look.
I know I'm not confused.
Well, somebody who's not familiar with it might be confused.
Definitely. Okay, that's it, thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the board for the outstanding questions today. I think we learned, especially from last year, that it's really important that all of our questions are asked, and that we take advantage of this time. So I'm going to pause just for a moment, because every question is a good question, because we make important decisions in regard to this capital improvement project and our long-range facilities project. And also, I'd like to ask Ms. Fitzer if you would check to make sure any questions, to make sure no more questions have came in from Mr. Sailors or Ms. Mosley. No questions? Are we all comfortable to close at this point? No additional questions? Okay, I just like to say to you, Dr. Royster, I enjoyed seeing you in the teaching mode today up there on the chart. That was a first.
I am still capable of doing it here, maybe not so much there.
We appreciate that. We appreciate those teaching moments, and those really are helpful. A special thank you also to Colonel Carlin, Drew, to Robin. Thank you for your investment in ensuring that we have a clear understanding moving forward. So thank you so much. I want to let everyone know that lunch is available when we leave today, so be sure to get your lunch. If there are no other questions, this is going to conclude our presentation at 11:41. We're still in the AM. So enjoy your lunch and have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you. I did better on paper for the old